Welcome back everyone to Bridge the Divide, where we examine irrational beliefs, the irrational behaviors that often follow, and how with education, rationality, and reason we can bridge the societal divides that they create. Today, we're taking a look at a video from the channel Reformed Riley. Now, I don't know much about Reformed Riley. I know he upholds sola fide, or salvation through faith alone, but that's pretty much a given seeing as how the word Reformed is in his channel name. I know he references the Bible Hub published Berean Standard Bible for his biblical citations. I know he emphasizes the 5 points of Calvinism, and that he holds that his God is sovereign and is in total control of salvation. But he's only dropped 6 videos on his channel so far, and as such, I haven't been able to determine which specific denomination he belongs to within the Reformed family. Now in this video, Riley makes the pretty massive claim that life without God is meaningless. And I know, it is like so totally an original concept. So let's dive in and see exactly how Riley here is going to try and rationally justify that claim.
Life without God is meaningless.
Now, if you listen to any of the content produced by theists or any of the response content produced by non-believers, you have undoubtedly heard this particular statement repeated ad nauseum. And on its face, it's complete nonsense. A lack of mind or stance-independent meaning does not imply or entail no meaning whatsoever. And while it should be case closed from there, these individuals continue to rely upon this statement. And I think it's a fair assessment that their continued reliance upon it indicates not only that they haven't taken it to its logical conclusion, but that they also don't really understand what is logically entailed by how they define their God concept. Terms like meaning and value are abstract concepts, meaning that they exist entirely as conceptualizations, and they are assigned to various things for various reasons. They essentially function as qualifiers that reflect the relationship between the agent that is doing the assigning and the thing that they're being assigned to. Now, the important takeaway here is that these things are entirely subjective or mind-dependent in nature, and that would still hold even if a God existed. That the God is defined as being the ultimate thing in existence and that it holds anything external of itself as being valuable does not logically entail that any valuation the God may put upon anything that is not itself is objective or mind stance independent. In fact, if the God were to actually exist, that would confirm that things like meaning and value are entirely subjective in nature, as definitionally nothing exists independently of the God to indicate what the valuation of life ought to be. The determination of any kind of evaluation is entirely subjective to the God. As for the non-believer's position, we're just removing one layer from the onion. We are not convinced of the truth of the proposition, so we don't hold that such an agent exists to subjectively assign a value to life. And from there, we look at what we can actually confirm to exist, which would be us humans, and we simply acknowledge that such qualifiers are subjectively determined by us. So the correct statement that Riley should be making here is, if no God exists, then any meaning for life that is assigned by human beings, and it's still entirely subjective. No problem there.
If there really is no God, we are a result of random evolutionary processes that did not have us in mind, and everything that happens has no purpose in it whatsoever.
Sure, there'd be no intentionality behind existence and no subjective purpose being assigned by any external agent. I'm failing to see how this is anything more than just an appeal to consequences fallacy.
Well, that's not true. My life has purpose. I give my life purpose.
That's that subjectivity that I mentioned earlier. Still no problem here.
Okay, and I'm a female. Okay, well, you're obviously not a female. You have XY chromosomes.
Really? Are you surprised?
Why do they always fall back on blatant transphobia? So firstly, this is a category error. Gender identity and biological sex are two entirely different things, and you are conflating them here, Riley, as ignorant bigots often do. There is a world of difference between the statements, my gender identity is, and my biological sex is. Secondly, there are separate context-dependent usages of the term meaning that you are conflating here, Riley. At the start of your vid, you invoked the term in the interpretive context, which refers to significance, intent, purpose, or importance. But here, in your little transphobic bit, you are actually conflating two other contexts for the term, specifically linguistic and experiential. Linguistic referring to the denotative definition of words, and experiential referring to subjective associations and cultural connotations, and from this we can ultimately conclude that your little example here is nothing more than a giant category error. Only 22 seconds in and you're already off the reservation. And we're gonna go ahead and jump forward a little bit because it's just more grossly transphobic nonsense. Ain't no hate like Christian love, am I right?
If there is no God, and you say your life has purpose, in reality, there is no purpose in life.
Again, that's incorrect. Just because there is no subjective purpose being assigned by some external agent, it does not logically follow that we agents cannot subjectively assign meaning and value to ourselves and other things. Again, this is an appeal to consequences. And that image that you're using, Riley, of Greta stating that her life has purpose, she's not stating that her life has mind stance independent purpose. She's stating that her life has purpose because she has subjectively chosen to dedicate her life to a particular cause or goal. That would definitionally be her purpose, and it's entirely stance dependent. And by the way, you still have yet to explain how this is somehow an objective issue that we must be concerned with.
So subjectively, that statement holds no validity.
Yeah, Riley, I figured you weren't using the term subjectively correct here. An individual's self-descriptive statement about their self-assigned purpose for their life is valid because it is true, meaning that it corresponds with reality. Just because that purpose is mind stance dependent does not mean it is the problem that you think it is.
It is completely arbitrary for you to say that you have purpose in life, the same way it is completely arbitrary for me to say that I'm a female.
You're also misusing the term arbitrary here. Arbitrary means to be based on random choice or personal whim rather than any specific reason or established system. Individuals subjectively determine a purpose for their own lives based on the things that they have systematically determined to be most important to them. And transgender individuals present themselves as their gender identity for a very specific reason, to reflect to the world their true identity, and thus alleviate themselves of the stress, anxiety, and cognitive dissonance that comes with a life lived in hiding. Specifically, it's for their psychological health. I gotta be honest with you, Riley, it's starting to look like just cracking a basic dictionary would solve a lot of the problems that you have here.
Now, if you are an atheist who believes that there is purpose to life outside of human subjectivity,
so you do acknowledge that subjective meaning is still meaning.
who is the purposer? Who is giving purpose?
Obviously, that would be the agent themselves that's doing the assigning. How is this even a question?
Without a god, without a purposer, there is no purpose in life.
No, that agent wouldn't exist to dictate a subjective purpose, so the act of doing so rests entirely with us humans.
The reason everything is random without a god, the definition of random is made, done, happening, or chosen without method or conscious decision.
Sure, if there is no overarching intentionality, then things in the universe are the way they are because of the naturalistic forces that resulted in them being that way. Once again, this is only a problem if you personally don't happen to like that notion, which of course would mean this is not a we problem, it's really just a you problem.
How can you arbitrarily place value on things and say that these things are valuable objectively?
One, we subjectively assign values to things to reflect the relationships that are established between us and those things. Two, we don't make the claim that the value assigned to that thing is in any way mind or stance independent. I may hold that a particular thing in my life has great meaning or great value to me, but that does not translate to that thing being equally important to anyone else in the world or even important at all in the face of the cosmos. So what you're doing here is just a complete misrepresentation.
You say your life has meaning? Well, if there is no God, you're wrong.
You can repeat that claim as often as you like, but I've already debunked it by exposing the logical entailment of how you define your particular God.
And for the sake of the argument, if I grant the idea that you can create your own purpose in life,
which you most certainly can,
what does it result in?
Probably a more fulfilling and enjoyable life experience. But ultimately, that determination comes down to the individual.
There is no ultimate end goal. We all end up in the same place if there is no God. We all end up in the soil and cease to exist.
While there is a minuscule chance that the overall effect of any one individual's life will have some significant impact on the future of our species, the slim odds that that will ever happen in no way reduces or eliminates the effect of that individual's life on their immediate circle or even in their community. Whether it be global or local, the information of our lives are our contributions. Exactly how much information you contribute or try to contribute is, however, ultimately up to you. And yeah, we're all gonna die. How is that a problem?
And if everything you do here on Earth ultimately does not matter in the end, why does it matter now?
Because of the relationship established between that meaning and my own experience. And somehow I doubt that I will be the first person to ever tell you this, Riley, but you are tap dancing perilously close to some profoundly psychopathic reasoning here.
If everything ends in nothingness, so what?
Yeah, so what if it ends in nothingness? See what I did there? You're asking the question, so what if it all ends in nothingness? Your reasoning is that if it all ends in nothing, then nothing that exists can possibly have any value. So why do anything at all if you can't change the ultimate outcome? And I'm stating unequivocally, so what if it all ends in nothing? My reasoning is that because it likely ends in nothing, then our individual experiences become all that more valuable. And as such, it incentivizes me to accomplish as much as I can in this world for the brief amount of time that I have. The major difference between our positions is that I don't need to create a fictional character and then define it in some particular way as to provide a justification for my own existence to myself. That is how I know that all this stuff you're putting forward here is nothing more than an appeal to emotion. And to go one step further, neither one of our individual outlooks is logically entailed by holding to the position that no God exists. An individual's outlook on life, whether it be pessimistic, realistic, or optimistic, is entirely subjective to that individual.
So what to the things that happen now? You fall in love? So what? You think that murderer is wrong? So what? You think it's a bad thing to lie to people, to kill people, to hurt people? So what?
You do know that societies exist for a reason, right? Our species establishes them and also establishes behavioral rules by which they will operate in order to ensure our continued survival by providing safety for and improving the quality of the experience of the individuals within the society.
You achieve great success. So what? Death will swallow it whole.
Not necessarily. Like I said, the information of my life carries on after I die in the memories of the people that knew me. Now, will that information have any kind of an impact on the future of my loved ones? I'd like to think it would, but will it have any kind of a grand impact on the future of our species? While there's no means for me to determine one way or the other, it's pretty much likely not. And I'm not really that concerned about the state of a future that I myself will not be around to experience. However, what I am expressly concerned with now are the experiences of myself and of the people that I love, and what I'm generally concerned with right now is the current state of our species.
Atheists, if you profess a subjective value standard, for example, you say that murdering is wrong, again, so what?
Well, we say murder is wrong because by definition our society uses that term to refer to a specific action, the taking of the life of another individual for which no societally accepted justification can be determined. So, that murder is wrong is analytically true. However, were you to take the life of another individual and you did so fully believing that you had justification to do so, but the collective society in which you live determines after an examination of the evidence that you did not in fact have full justification to do so, did you actually commit murder in any kind of a mind stance independent sense? The answer is obviously no, because that which constitutes justification for the act is subjectively determined by the society. The established standards for justification in one society may not necessarily apply to another society, and by the standards of that other society they may have decreed that you had full justification and they would have let you go. And yet still there could be a society that completely ignores mitigating or extenuating circumstances altogether, and any possible reason as to why you did it is deemed completely irrelevant. And maybe instead of going through any kind of a due process, they just eliminate you on the spot. So the answer to your so what question would depend entirely upon your desire to stay within the society that you are currently in. Your position on matters will be relative to your personal experience.
If you think that humans are on Earth to prosper and thrive, so what if humans don't?
Well, it would be the fact that humans could exist and not thrive that would drive the individual's desire to work towards the goal of improving our species' ability to thrive, and that would go towards them having a more fulfilling life experience than if they did otherwise. Again, all of this comes down to your personal experience.
If you do not believe in a God, and you want to give me a long explanation as to why things should be the way that you want them to be,
it's because a society that values equality and equanimity is a society that I want to be a part of and experience. Guess it wasn't that long at all.
and things don't turn out to be that way, so what?
Then it behooves me to work towards changing the society, either by doing the work myself, or taking the time to organize others who believe as I do and work together towards that goal. This is in fact a great example of a purpose that untold numbers of people have subjectively dedicated their lives to. And we're going to jump past this section because Riley's intellectual record starts skipping.
There is no God. Who cares?
We do. We exist. How is this hard for you to comprehend?
So what? I can do what I want.
Not if you plan to stay a member of the society and enjoy the benefits of being a member for very long. But ultimately, that's up to you.
If you tell me I shouldn't do what I want, again, I'll say, so what if I do what I want?
And we have a response to that. It's called the fucking legal system. And then you can sit your happy ass behind bars and yell your so what's at the guards.
Bye, have a great time.
Please tell me, Riley, that you at least recognize how deeply antisocial your thinking is here, and just how problematic it is that you require a god to exist in order to justify adhering to the rules of the society that you're in.
Now, once you stop suppressing the truth and unrighteousness...
Yeah, Chief, I'm just going to cut you off right there. No matter what your cult manual may tell you, you do not have special access to my mind. And don't think for a second that it's gotten by any of us that you are still ignoring the question that's on the table. How is any of what you've said anything more than an appeal to consequences fallacy?
And you understand and realize that God truly does exist?
Yeah, it doesn't. And I know for a fact that your God doesn't exist because you have defined it as a logical contradiction. You still haven't justified your initial position.
You understand that that's our justification to say why things have value.
Your subjective justification, because it's mind stance dependent.
And again, I'll say it. If something doesn't exist in reality, objectively, outside of human subjectivity, it does not matter what a human subjectively thinks of that thing.
You literally just devalued all abstract concepts. So, please demonstrate for us that your God actually exists independently of mind and context without begging the question, or appealing to consequence. I'll wait. And we're going to skip this last section because it's just more ignorant transphobia and him repeating his claim. Now from here, I think it's pretty obvious to see that Riley doesn't really grasp the full entailments of his own worldview. He certainly doesn't understand what the position of atheism actually is or what it logically entails. And I also think he's made it pretty clear that he is the kind of person that everyone around him will be a hell of a lot safer if he doesn't stop believing that a God exists. Which, by the way, actually goes towards confirming my position, that just because the theist position lacks any kind of rational justification, in the context of certain circumstances, it certainly can have some utility. Now, bridging the divide here presents a bit of a unique challenge, and that's because the position that was expressed by the believer here is grounded entirely in their subjective outlook on reality. Ultimately, an individual's outlook is deeply informed by their personal experiences, and while I personally hold that it is deeply antisocial to try and convince another person that their emotional response to a given experience is in any way unwarranted, it is important to remember that one's emotions alone do not dictate what is true about external reality. This is why intellectual honesty is so vital for constructive dialogue. While I hold that an individual such as this should not be divested of their belief, if only for the safety and security of everyone around them, the individuals that they're trying to reach do need to be informed that their position is nothing more than an appeal to emotion, specifically an appeal to consequences. A person may not like or agree with the potential consequences of the logical possibility of a proposition being true, but that disagreement or disliking holds no bearing on the truth or falsity of the proposition itself. In the end, each individual has to approach their own outlook at their own pace. And I think if this theist position affirmed anything at all, it's how vitally important access to social support systems are for the human experience, especially those systems that work diligently to empower people in the scope of their own lives, as opposed to devaluing them in the scope of something that is completely fabricated as a measure of control. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications. And be sure to leave a comment below. I love reading your responses, and those interactions help with the dreaded algorithm. Don't forget, September is National Recovery Month. The link to where you can support these important efforts is down in the description. And if you like what you saw here and would like to support this channel further, a link to channel memberships and to get yourself some official Bridge the Divide gear are also in the description. Once again, thank you all so much for your continued support of this channel, and as always, be safe, be excellent to each other, and together we can bridge the divide.